All right, so let's start with why employee experience. I'll set the scene and the need to address the sort of challenges we're facing today. So at the heart of any organization, or the driving force for any business rather, is its people. So when companies invest in their people and in employee experience, they can directly impact employee engagement, satisfaction, employee retention, and profitability ultimately. So leaders realize the importance of putting people first. It's been challenging, though, to create a great employee experience when people feel disconnected, job demands have increased, and employee well-being has declined. So leaders have been struggling to equip employees with the skills and tools needed to drive growth. Now, this has been an ongoing problem. So some problem areas, I think, that I've seen continuously is that people just want to get their job done, right? They want to be able to deal with their day-to-day job. They don't care about what technology is, whether it's Microsoft, whether it's Oracle, whether it's SAP. They just want to be able to get on with their day jobs. As you can see from this diagram, every individual has maybe a different take. Everyone has to focus on their own individual productivity, but then it starts moving. You may be dealing with publishing KPIs. You may be dealing with document management. If you overlay this with just the tools that are provided from the Microsoft ecosystem, you can see that there's tons of options available for someone to log into. Now, there's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all. You're never going to have one tool that can do everything. I think we get that. But it's the ability to sort of be able to access what you need quickly in a more sort of maybe one-stop shop type scenario. So this is just a Microsoft tool set. On top of that, you've got other supporting tools, your CRMs, your ERPs, your marketing technologies, and so on and so forth. And this world has been screaming out for a consolidated experience. And like I said, this is not new news. Another more recent problem we've had is what Microsoft are dubbing the hybrid work paradox, is the next, what we call the next great disruption. So let's take a look at what Microsoft published in its annual work trend index. And they studied around, I think it was 30,000 people in 31 countries. 73% of workers said they wanted flexible remote options. At the same time, 67% of employees tell us they want more in-person collaboration with their teams post-pandemic. I think people are missing that sort of water cooler moment and the ability to just, foster innovation through different ways, not just set meetings. We've learned that about 80% of managers say they expect more flexible work from home policies post-pandemic. So what we see here is employees say they want more flexible remote work options, but at the same time saying they want more in-person collaboration. And that is the hybrid work paradox. Another challenge that leaders have to address is addressing digital exhaustion. There was a new study published, I think it was last year, which looked at the impact of back-to-back video calls on brains and stress. And not surprisingly, it's not great. There are, the good news is, with short breaks in 5 or 10 minutes, you can reduce anxiety and reset our sort of cognitive function. There's a new feature in Outlook that lets you set meeting defaults to create sort of 5-minute breaks between meetings to make an organization-wide change. And it's small changes like that that can have an impact on well-being. So enter the world of employee experience. So Microsoft Viva was launched February the 4th last year. And the idea being that it will provide a framework or a platform of tools to help provide a single pane of glass experience. So trying to consolidate all the plethora of tools that we use, regardless of whether it's Microsoft, Oracle, ServiceNow, no one cares. It just bring it all together somehow, or at least give me a single entry point. On top of that, addressing well-being, that's a bit of a challenge, and helping us through this next great disruption, i.e. this hybrid work paradox. It's an employee experience for the hybrid area. So what you've got is through Microsoft Teams, Microsoft realized that Microsoft Teams is probably ideally placed as a sort of default entry point for people in the morning. Before it was Outlook, but having a portal system on a separate application or through the browser still needs people to go in and log in especially. Whereas Teams has become that de facto, my standard tool. The first thing I open in the morning, I chat with my various teams. I do one-to-one chats. So Viva Insights it's been around for about 2.5 years now. It was known as Workplace Analytics originally. Then it got rebranded last year under this sort of Viva Employee Experience offering. And essentially what Viva Insights is a technology which pulls out signals from the tools you interact with and is able to present a number of very interesting dashboards, as you'll see in a moment, eye candy, as we call it, for individuals like yourselves. So it's not technical. We're not looking at sales figures and all that. We're looking at what people are doing across our organization. And I'm going to caveat that by saying this is not a big brother technology. It's designed to help you sort of model and understand and do things like, maybe increase your organizational resilience, your agility, maybe empower your managers more.
When you get into your breakout in a moment, we will also share this information in the breakout. And I want you as a team to think about, what do you think this data is telling you?
Essentially, what this is telling us that there is a indicator or a potential of burnout risk. It's something that needs addressing. So what do? We've got an insight like this. Okay, great. You're telling me 23% of my organization are working after hours. So what I'd like to do is be able to dig deeper. So to enable you to act on that and address burnout risk and ultimately well-being of our employees, we've got to see which departments or teams are working over 5 hours. Now, like I said, this isn't Big Brother. I'm not going to identify this person, that person, this person. It's more about which teams, which clusters, and understand what activities they may be doing. And looking at how much time is diverted on other activities. So there needs to be the ability to dig deeper. So Viva Insights allows us to do that. It gives us those entry points and those areas of sort of high level charts and says, okay, I want to be able to, this doesn't look right. Let's look at this, form a hypotheses and seeing if this is an issue. And well-being currently, especially post-pandemic, and when you're looking at half your workforce at home, half your workforce at work, you do need to assess things like productivity and well-being. So what is Viva Insights? Viva Insights is a number of dashboards that have come through Microsoft. They manifest through Microsoft Teams or a mobile app. And essentially they're data-driven insights and they can provide actionable recommendations. Microsoft Viva Insights works on that whole concept of nudge theory. Set up plans. Once you've identified an issue, turn that insight into an action, set up plans, nudge, not nag, and try and embed change subtly. And the idea here is, answer questions, whether it's well-being, address meeting culture you want to transform, diversity and inclusion, increasing engagement, and of course, well-being, as we mentioned earlier. So that's just some of the things. And as you'll see, this is just the tip of the iceberg type stuff. Essentially, what you've got is if I use the Microsoft sort of 3R model, if you look at sort of responding to current scenarios, whether it's transforming meeting culture, that your meetings, we have a meeting culture, they're too long, too many participants, Microsoft call it bloated. Are they effective? What's the impact of those meetings? And then recovering from sort of pandemic era, looking at return to work sites, looking at enhancing operational effectiveness, and then reimagining and remodeling the future, fostering innovation, understanding which teams are working, the flow of communications through organizational network analysis diagrams, for those of you who've seen that stuff, which is great. It shows you the flow of communication, how teams are working with each other, but how other teams are in silos and they're not communicating. Now, how does this know that? It's doing something really simple. It's just seeing the number of emails and Teams calls and meetings and interactions between these two departments. Here's a quick tour. Viva Insights itself, you may have seen this icon pop up. You may get a Viva digest that comes up on a Monday morning every week. But essentially, Viva Insights is an app which every individual can get on Teams, and it allows you to book focus time, shows you some of your tasks. It integrates with a technology called Headspace, allowing you to meditate for 1 minute or 5 minutes. But the focus of this is purely you as an individual. And it's got some good stuff there. When you put in the full-blown Viva Insights, the manager and leaders get different types of insights. So from a team manager perspective, I can see which of my team are a burnout risk and compare with other sort of baselines. And once I've identified that, I can push out plans to help them unwind, help them book focus time and not get some sort of fragmented hours. From a leader perspective, you can see the team cohesion and all the stuff I just talked about. And there's a number of business outcomes, which I'll touch on later, which allows you to do things like accelerate decision making, address organizational resilience. And these charts all manifest through Microsoft Teams, depending on what role you are. So if you're a leader and you've got the right role, you will see this. Not everyone will see this. There is a whole other tool in the background for sort of the analyst's view, where you working with people like Biz and ourselves to come up with what you're trying to address, making sure the chart shows what's relevant to you, but also how you then put that into practice. And that's where Biz will come in, helping you to put the plans and on the whole coaching side of stuff, just to get you going. So it's not just about, this is one insight. What do we do to change that? And that could take 3 months, 6 months, but we're going to help you baseline it and help you move from there. So that's a quick sort of tour on the technology itself. And like I said, it will manifest itself through Microsoft Teams in this manner. So I saw a little note on privacy, my one eye on these questions popping up. So again, it is compliant with GDPR. When you're embarking on an endeavor like this, we do have to consider whether or not we need to do a sort of data protection impact assessment, just so you know from you control. Yeah. So it's a case of your decisions are, who's going to see it, what roles of people are going to see it, what we're going to exclude, which areas of people we're going to exclude for whatever reason. And also, just so you know, by default, the data is de-identified. So when you look at the import that comes in, so essentially what happens is Viva Insight goes off and starts pulling all these signals together. And it's probably running now for all your organizations, even if you don't use it. But what then happens is when you want to enable this, you mix it with, you combine it with your own organizational data. So you say, these are our departments, these are our functions, and so on and so forth. When it puts it all together, you'll notice everywhere where there's an individual, the name is hashed out. So you can't actually see individual people. Now, granted, one may be able to infer if you've got a team of 5 people and they're working 7 days a week, you know who that team is. So you can, it's not completely hidden. However, that's where these sort of controls come in, and that's where impact assessment is probably a good idea. But like I said, it is compliant with all GDPR standards, and it is not designed for Big Brother. It's designed for helping you identify issues and address them. Okay.
This is around manager effectiveness. So another piece of information that could come out from your organization's Viva Insights. This is just an example. So this is about the amount of time that a manager is spending one-on-one time with in the different departments.
So which department caused the concern? So 19% of engineering and 12% of sales had literally no manager one-to-one time. And I think this is where, I think back research shows, I think it's called an absentee manager relationship, but I think research shows that there should be at least 15 minutes per month at a minimum, or every 2 weeks, a sort of one-to-one. And that's, talk about succession, talk about growth, talk about issues, whatever that is, there should be some connectivity. Now, how does the system know it's doing that? Well, it's going to look at your Outlook invite. It's going to look at your meeting that took place or not, and whether or not you attended. Okay, so many of you are right. That's the key thing it's showing here. But of course, you can sort of dig deeper. By multitasking, what this is telling us is where a user or a person is in a meeting, they're participating in the meeting, but they're sending out more than 2 emails. So if you are sending out emails while you're in a meeting, which some of you may be doing now, how engaged are you? Okay, so it's a very simple thing, but it can all, you can start seeing patterns emerging. And I'll just quick move on, Hazel, just for time.
Yeah, sure, in the interest of time, no problem.
And, then you can start assessing, is it driven by habit? Because we just need to or necessity. I don't have enough hours in the day. So if you look here, the majority of multitasking rates are high. So the average collaboration hours. So across the company, 9% of the population are multitasking in each of the meetings. At the same time, 20% of employees with collaboration over 20 hours, but the multitasking remains low. So there is a sort of split balance. Now, essentially, this is something we need to sort of look at. And the way we can address this, I mean, one good place to start could be, let's look at recurring meetings first. So when you start analyzing this in recurring meetings, where this is where it gets interesting, you plot meeting engagement, so number of emails sent during a meeting versus the number of hours, you start seeing areas you need to possibly intervene. If it's a recurring meeting, should we do something simple like just revisit the attendee lists? And should we revisit the meeting length and frequency? Does it need to be every so often? Does it need 50 people in there? Again, from here, you can go into all sorts of directions. You can see actually a manager is attending the same meetings as his or her direct reports. Is that necessary on all of them? Are they micromanaging? Are they not empowering them enough? Would time be better spent? So this is the sort of areas you can go into. So it becomes quite an interesting space. So that's the sort of high level eye candy. But as I said to you, it's just the tip of the iceberg stuff, and quite literally tip of the iceberg. So where would you start for something like this? I mean, we've just looked at about maybe 1% of the themes around boosting employee engagement, but there's all sorts of other things you can address. Whether you want to address diversity and inclusion, you want to see how many managers how they're interacting with their male subordinates.
This was really fast. And now I've seen lots of concerns in the chat. This data in the wrong hands, I believe could be incorrectly used, right? And any information, you can do different things with the analytics. This for me is why I think HR, L&D, talent management need to really understand what this can do for you positively, how you can use it and how you can create those nudges. And it begins with an end game. It begins with you saying, okay, I want to build more of a coaching culture in my organization. So I want to access this data to understand just how much one-on-one time my managers are having with their teams. Or how can I actually make sure it's more efficient in that time? Or maybe you're wanting managers to be more empowering, and perhaps you can look and see how many managers attend every meeting that their teams are in. You can even look at how much time is spent with customers versus internal meetings if we're wanting to be more customer centric. So this data is useful if you're using it well and you are identifying what you want to do and what you want to improve in your organization. I just want you to know that it exists. You might also look at that collaboration, teaming, networks. Are departments still in silos? Now you're back. You're still working remotely. Who works well with each other? What channels should we use for most efficient communication? So, when we talk about data in our world, we're often talking about what's already happened. We're talking about the breakdown of team members. We're talking about the learning hours that they've done. I want us to learn that this data can tell us what might be happening, and therefore we can be more proactive in solving problems rather than reactive to something we find out about. That's why I think it's powerful, and it is just at the beginning.